sly smile, she began to rock her hips, fucking herself, her heart hammered in her chest as she watched the biker, who had been leering at her earlier, stride confidently toward the stage, his thick, throbbing cock catching every eye. His gaze slid over to Leela with a burning, expectant look, as if he desperately wanted his shot. A wicked smirk tugged at her lips as she felt the power shift. The room was hers now. "You're craving me, aren't you?" she purred, her voice a sultry, raw invitation that sent a shudder straight through him. "Then come on over and claim every part of me." In a heart-stopping instant, the biker pounced, his rugged frame pinning her against the sticky floorboards. His rough, eager hands roamed her body, gripping her ample breasts and crushing her thighs in a blend of hunger and desire. But Leela wasn't about to let him dictate the night. With deliberate mischief, she reached for the unattended champagne bottle at the side of the stage, its cool, slick glass heightening her anticipation. Without missing a beat, she set her own plans into motion, daringly filling her heat with the chill of the glass just before his next move could claim control. Their eyes locked in a daring contest as she slowly raised the bottle to her dripping core. The icy glass was a stark, electrifying contrast to the burning heat of his warm breath that grazed her skin. He froze, a tangled mix of confusion and raw intrigue sparkling in his eyes as she began her tantalizing tease, inch by provocative inch. The unyielding glass pressed against the softness of her flesh, amplifying every pulse of desire. The room seemed to hold its breath. Every onlooker was caught in the magnetic pull of the erotic display unfolding before them. A low, husky laugh escaped her as she began to rock her hips, rhythmically driving herself against the bottle in an orgasmic dance of defiance and pleasure. "Yo, you like watching me, don't you?" she cooed, each word dripping with lascivious intent that sent jolts of electric arousal through the captivated audience. The biker's eyes widened, his hands momentarily stalling on her thighs as he drank in her every deliberate, debauched move. The cold glass slid in and out of her, igniting a sensory overload that blurred the line between pain and ecstasy, making her moans grow deeper and more urgent. His throbbing cock twitched visibly, a bead of precum testifying to the raw, infectious passion swirling between them. Around them, the room was agape, every biker transfixed by her audacious performance. Their eyes hungrily devoured every twist and thrust, their own lust pulsing in harmony with the frenzied, pounding rhythm of their desires. Even as the man beneath her shifted restlessly, his needs surging, Leela maintained flawless control. The undisputed queen of this riotous, carnal stage. The glass bottle gleamed under the flickering candlelight, its every movement a testament to her hedonistic mastery. At that electrifying moment, Madame Luna emerged from the shadows like a dark temptress, her eyes glinting with a sly, dangerous promise that sent shivers down Leela's spine. Carrying her own bottle of champagne, the cork escaping with a soft, provocative pop that echoed around the room, she glided over to the stage. "Time for the grand finale, baby," she purred, her voice thick with seductive command. The room leaned in, every breath and heartbeat on high alert, ready to surrender to the ultimate debauched climax. Luna extended the bottle toward Leela, the liquid inside shimmering with a luster akin to molten gold. Leela accepted it with hands that quivered, fully conscious of the gravity of the moment. This was her opportunity to shift the balance, to retaliate against the monsters who had upended their lives. The bikers erupted in cheers, lifting their own glasses brimming with the potent concoction, blissfully unaware of the scheme unfolding right before their eyes. With a dramatic flourish, Leela positioned herself over the champagne bottle, her body accommodating its base as she began to move with deliberate rhythm. Once again, the room fell into a hush, the silence broken only by the slick, rhythmic sounds of glass moving in and out of her, occasionally interrupted by the sharp crack of a whip. Madame Luna weaved among the men, refilling their glasses with a knowing, sly smile. To the girls, she toasted, her voice thick with irony as they drank with eager abandon. The bikers were ensnared in a tempest of lust and bewilderment, their gazes locked on the provocative display before them. Oblivious to the creeping sedatives, they remained entranced until the inevitable took hold. One by one, their heads drooped, eyes clouded with a stupefied haze. The Viper was the first to succumb, his grip slipping from the stage's edge as he crumpled to the floor, his arousal still defiantly prominent. A hush descended over the room as the last biker fell victim to the intoxicating blend of champagne and sedatives. Madame Luna's grin widened, her eyes shimmering with victorious delight. Tiffany, the performer who had captivated the Viper, rose with a tremor coursing through her, an echo of the power she had just wielded. She surveyed the unconscious figures strewn about the room, her eyes sparking with fierce resolve. Methodically, she moved among the bikers, her lips descending upon each of their limp cocks. With a well-honed skill that spoke of her harrowing past in Mexico as a captive, she took them into her mouth, her tongue coaxing the final remnants from their still quivering bodies. Each swallow marked a conquest, a proclamation of their frailty and her reclaimed strength. The bikers were no longer the hunters, they had become the hunted, undone by their own indulgences. The biker with the whip lay motionless, his body slack, yet betraying the remnants of arousal. Even in his unconsciousness, he was at her mercy. She leaned in, her mouth enveloping him with a deliberate intent, her teeth brushing against the tender flesh as she drained him of his essence. A moan escaped his lips, feeble and pathetic, more a whisper of defeat than desire. The room was a cocoon of silence, broken only by the sporadic snores and the soft scuffle of the girl's movements. Leela observed Tiffany through a veil of conflicting emotions, admiration mingled with a creeping revulsion. Her own hand clutched the champagne bottle embedded within her, a reminder of their grim triumph. Tiffany's motions were precise, each dip of her head a silent, defiant proclamation of their conquest. As the last biker's body released its hold on her, she fell back on her heels, her gaze locking with Leela's. The room was steeped in an unsettling stillness, the crackling fire casting flickering shadows, the only other sound the intermittent snores of the men scattered across the floor. The girls exchanged looks, their eyes aglow with the luminous intensity of shared victory. No longer were they mere survivors. They had transformed into warriors, forged in the heat of a battle they had never sought. Leela inhaled sharply, struggling to calm her frenzied heart. The potent force she had just unleashed was exhilarating, yet she was acutely aware of the perilous game they were embroiled in. Madame Luna stepped forward, her face etched with fierce resolve. "You must finish," she murmured, her gaze locked intensely on Leela's. Tiffany sidled up beside her, eyes gleaming with an unexpected vigor. She seized the champagne bottle from Madame Luna, her hand betraying a slight tremor. "Let us," she declared, her voice steady, though it wavered slightly. She tilted the bottle, allowing the amber liquid to cascade over the biker's exposed skin. A shiver coursed down Leela's. The girls moved as a pack, their every action synchronized by an unspoken bond. They pounced on the passed-out bikers, stripping them of their leather jackets and shirts, leaving them in just their boots. Each piece of clothing was torn away with a playful ferocity, the fabric ripping like the last shreds of the bikers' control. The room echoed with the sounds of fabric tearing, and the girls' laughs of exhilaration, a joyous symphony of empowerment. They took turns having their way with the sleeping men, their touches rough and playful, mirroring the bikers' previous transgressions, but with a twist of fun and liberation. The bikers' bodies were toyed with, their responses drawing amused giggles from the girls. It was a naughty game of tit-for-tat, a thrilling power play that sent waves of excitement through the girls. The bikers' snores grew louder, their bodies twitching in response to the teasing touches, but they remained blissfully unaware of the fun being had at their expense. One of the girls, her eyes sparkling with mischief, approached the biker who had first brought Leela into this wild party. She picked up the champagne bottle from the floor, a playful smile on her lips. With a swift, confident motion, she gave it a lick before pressing it against the unconscious man's ass. His body tensed, and she pushed it in, inch by naughty inch, until the bottle was firmly in place. The sound of the bottle entering the biker blended with the soft crackles of the fire, a cheeky reminder of the power shift in the room. Leela watched, her body still tingling with pleasure as the girls worked together, their movements fluid and fun. The biker's body jerked with each push, his snores growing more erratic. Suddenly, a gasp cut through the laughter, and all eyes turned to Madame Luna. The biker she'd been teasing, a burly man with a permanent sneer, was beginning to wake up. His eyes fluttered open, confusion and surprise flickering across his face as he took in the scene. Madame Luna's hand was wrapped around his cock, her thumb circling lazily. With a growl, he tried to buck his hips, attempting to free himself from her grip. But she was too quick, her hand tightening until he yelped. "Look who's joined the party," she said, her voice laced with playful sweetness. "What should we do with our new playmate?" "We can't," Leela protested, her voice a breathless whisper. "We have to get out of here before they wake up." But Madame Luna's gaze was hungry, her eyes glazed over with a need that was as potent as the drugs in the champagne. "Please," she begged, her voice a sweet symphony of desire. "I'm going to savor this." With a shaky nod, Leela acquiesced. She knew that this was a moment that would either bond them or break them, a line in the sand drawn in the very essence of their survival. The other girls watched as Leela climbed back onto the stage, the champagne bottle still embedded deep inside her. Madame Luna stepped closer, her hand caressing the cold glass, her eyes never leaving Leela's. "Show me," she murmured, her voice a siren's call that Leela couldn't resist. Her hips began to move again, her body taking over as she worked herself closer to the precipice. The sensation was unlike anything she had ever felt. The combination of the glass's coldness and the heat of the room's candles creating a symphony of sensation that had her gasping for breath. The room grew quiet, the only sounds the slap of her skin against the bottle and the crackle of the fire. The girls watched, their eyes wide with a mix of fear and fascination. They had never seen anything like this, had never known they could wield such power. Madame Luna's eyes, never her eyes, locked onto Leela's, compelling her to continue. Leela felt the intensity building, her muscles tightening around the bottle as she neared the peak. It was a terrifying yet exhilarating sensation, a potent blend of fear and pleasure that set her heart racing. With a final, decisive thrust, Leela withdrew the bottle with a gasp, the room seeming to pause in silent anticipation. Madame Luna was there, her hand already reaching for the exposed opening, her fingers slipping inside without hesitation. "Good girl," she purred, her voice a velvet caress that sent shivers down Leela's spine. Leela's body convulsed, her orgasm crashing over her like a tidal wave, the room spinning as she surrendered to the overwhelming sensation. The other girls watched, a mix of shock and awe etched on their faces as Madame Luna's hand remained entwined with Leela's body. The pleasure on Leela's face starkly contrasted with the horror of their situation, a beacon of power amid degradation. Madame Luna's gaze never wavered, her own desire evident in the rhythmic movement of her hand, mirroring Leela's hips. The room was silent save for their mingled breaths and the crackle of the fire. Leela's orgasm was a declaration, her body shuddering with its force as she claimed victory over the bikers. She watched as Madame Luna's expression intensified, the woman's hunger for power and control laid bare. The void left by the bottle was a symbol of their newfound dominance, a stark reminder of the control they had seized from the men who believed they held the reins. The girls moved as a pack, their every action synchronized by an unspoken bond. They pounced on the passed-out bikers, stripping them of their leather jackets and shirts, leaving them in just their boots. Each piece of clothing was torn away with a playful ferocity, the fabric ripping like the last shreds of the bikers' control. The room echoed with the sounds of fabric tearing, and the girls' laughs of exhilaration, a joyous symphony of empowerment. They took turns having their way with the sleeping men, their touches rough and playful, mirroring the bikers' previous transgressions, but with a twist of fun and liberation. The bikers' bodies were toyed with, their responses drawing amused giggles from the girls. It was a naughty game of tit-for-tat, a thrilling power play that sent waves of excitement through the girls. The bikers' snores grew louder, their bodies twitching in response to the teasing touches, but they remained blissfully unaware of the fun being had at their expense. One of the girls, her eyes sparkling with mischief, approached the biker who had first brought Leela into this wild party. She picked up the champagne bottle from the floor, a playful smile on her lips. With a swift, confident motion, she gave it a lick before pressing it against the unconscious man's ass. His body tensed, and she pushed it in, inch by naughty inch, until the bottle was firmly in place. The sound of the bottle entering the biker blended with the soft crackles of the fire, a cheeky reminder of the power shift in the room. Leela watched, her body still tingling with pleasure, as the girls worked together, their movements fluid and fun. The biker's body jerked with each push, his snores growing more erratic. Suddenly, a gasp cut through the laughter, and all eyes turned to Madame Luna. The biker she'd been teasing, a burly man with a permanent sneer, was beginning to wake up. His eyes fluttered open, confusion and surprise flickering across his face as he took in the scene. Madame Luna's hand was wrapped around his cock, her thumb circling lazily. With a growl, he tried to buck his hips, attempting to free himself from her grip. But she was too quick, her hand tightening until he yelped. "Look, who's joined the party," she said, her voice laced with playful sweetness. "What should we do with our new playmate?" In the aftermath of a night stained with violence and lust, the room lay like a grim canvas, bikers scattered like broken marionettes, their leather-clad forms marked by bruises and bite marks, while the others paused their bloody rituals, eyes glinting in anticipation. Madame Luna's smile widened as she produced a small knife and declared, "Let's show him the welcome reserved for the rest of you," her words heavy with ominous promise. Leela's eyes tracked every deliberate step as Madame Luna advanced toward a stirring biker, the knife poised at his throat. The cold metal silenced his frantic struggles, a single bead of blood marking the point of contact. "Don't move," Madame Luna commanded in a voice low and dangerous. The biker's terror was palpable. Then Leela, pushed to her limit, intervened with swift brutality. A powerful kick to the side of his head sent him crashing noisily to the floor, a shattered bottle marking the violent punctuation of his fall. The sudden silence was broken only by the lingering echoes of his defeat, while Madame Luna's hand froze, the knife suspended as she regarded Leela with startled admiration. "There's no time for games," Leela stated urgently. "We must leave now." With a fluid motion, she descended from the stage, leaving behind traces of champagne and desire, as Madame Luna slipped her knife back into place and conceded, "You're right. The bikers will awaken soon." The room burst alive anew as the girls gathered their makeshift arms under Madame Luna's resolute lead. The wild energy of survival igniting in every glance. Outside, the van awaited, the engine softly purring the promise of escape. Madame Luna pressed the keys into Leela's hand with unwavering authority. "You drive," she ordered. With hearts pounding in unison, Leela slid into the cramped driver's seat. The darkened alley receded behind them as the van shot forward into the fray of deserted streets. Leela gripped the wheel with determination while the wind roared past, punctuating their desperate flight, even as the persistent growl of motorcycle engines closed in. Madame Luna urged, "Faster." The threat on the radio, a biker's voice declaring their van's location, drove Leela to push through every nerve-wracking turn, pedals pressed until the van shuddered under the relentless pursuit. Shots rang out, a first gunshot splitting the night, followed by shattering glass as the back window exploded into glittering shards. Screams and the frantic sound of bullets embedding in metal heightened the chaos. Amid this storm, Madame Luna sustained a grievous injury as a third bullet soaked her sleeve in red. "Keep driving," she gritted through the pain. Leela's protests were met with Luna's steely resolve. A wound was nothing compared to the darkness that threatened them all. Suddenly, fate intervened. A violent sideways strike sent the van careening, the vehicle spinning until it crashed and groaned in its final gasp. As silence descended, only broken by low whimpers from the injured, the survivors confronted the eerie quiet of a night marred by horror. Madame Luna lay slumped by a broken window, blood trickling across her chest, while Leela fought through the pain to rise amid the wreckage. In that grim moment, the loss of one of their own, a missing Tiffany, seeped deeply into their shared grief. Yet Madame Luna, with eyes fluttering open, whispered her final command: "Find her. Now go. Save the others." Leela, defiant amid the ruins, clutched the door and forced it open. The cool night air mingled with the scent of gasoline as she hoisted Luna from the wreck. Every step away from that brotherland, fleeting nightmare fraught with terror. Footsteps on gravel signaled imminent danger. Desperation turned into a relentless escape through the night, winding deeper into a shadowed forest, where hope waited in a hidden cave marked on a hastily drawn map, a plan for refuge cast in ink and desperation. Emerging into a silvered clearing beside a gentle cenote and cascading waterfall, Leela gently laid Madame Luna onto soft moss. The remaining girls gathered, faces etched with lost hope and raw determination. "Find Tiffany," Madame Luna managed before surrendering once again to the pull of darkness. Leela, though trembling, promised to do so, driven by the fleeting spark of hope that still burned despite the chaos. Inside the cool sanctuary of the cave, a secret haven hidden behind a curtain of ivy, the girls tended to wounds and sorrows alike. Leela fought through shaking hands to staunch the flow of crimson from Luna's injured shoulder. The cavern's silence intercut by whispered resolve, and the soft drip of water echoing off stone walls. But as if darkness itself had more to offer, primal, ever driven by instinct and a fierce need to protect, tracked the lingering traces of Tiffany's presence through the forest. His pursuit was relentless, a brutal ballet of raw power and primal fury as he tore through the underbrush with menacing grace. And when he found Tiffany, marked by violation and dominated by despair, his protective rage transformed into a quiet, dangerous promise, one that forewarned any who dared defile what was his. The ensuing confrontation unfolded in the cavern's dim light, a tableau of raw, unyielding retribution. Primal's mighty figure surged forth, his roar shattering the uneasy calm as he denounced the filth and degradation that stained those who had dared to hurt them. In that silent, suspended moment, Leela's whispered plea for protection reverberated among the terrified faces, binding them in a silent oath of survival. As the melee subsided, Primal's rugged determination remained steadfast. With every measured step toward Madame Luna and through the torrents of the cenote's waterfall, he demanded both purification and retribution, commanding the survivors to wash away not just their physical scars, but the stench of violation that clung to them. The water, cold and unyielding, became their baptism in a night stripped of light, while cracks in the earth signaled that even the sanctuary was soon to be marred by fate's capricious hand. The chapter closed on that turbulent note, a final, shattering roar as the cavern's back wall trembled and collapsed under an unknown force. In the echo of collapsing stone and the terror of desperate escape, the survivors were left standing, caught between the agony of their past and the uncertain promise of dawn. And as the darkness swayed around them, every wounded soul knew that though the night had almost swallowed them whole, their battle was far from over.